Good day to all. Welcome to Extreme Recap. Paul Campbell is a real estate professional from Canada who has an incredibly extraordinary way to deal with completing things. He is nothing more than a sheet. In point of fact, whenever he is going to sell a property, he just covers it with different things. Sadly for Paul, most of his customers find out about the con and leave within 5 minutes. Because of this, he has become a very unsuccessful real estate agent, and as a result, he and his family are forced to live very modest lives with very few luxuries. He sounds to me like a Canadian. He learns that his beloved uncle has passed away when he arrives home from work one day. In one sense, Paul is saddened by the loss, but he's also happy because the uncle was a millionaire and didn't have any family. This suggests that Paul will purchase all of his assets. However, when he meets the uncle's lawyer, he figures out that the old man had offered all of his abundance to good cause. Paul brings the little plant with him and heads back home, disappointed and maddened, with nothing left for his nephew and Mrs. The accompanying daytime during breakfast, Paul is as yet feeling terrible. He reprimands his children for overspending on things they barely use. $20. This week, they begin to despise Paul because it is revealed that he has never given them pocket change. That is insufficient, Dad, even for skin for 2 weeks. Paul discovers the plant as he clears a storeroom in his lawn after breakfast. There, he is still furious at his uncle, yet additionally chooses to water the plants to show some regard. Also, when he acts in that way, out of the blue, a $100 greenback rises out of it. Paul quickly grabs it and looks at it in disbelief. At this point, he realizes that the plant is not just any plant. Rather, it is a genuine cash plant. While Paul continues his investigation, his family suddenly arrives at the location. However, rather than demonstrating his most recent discovery, he changes the subject and dismisses them. At the point when Paul gets back from work the next day, he restlessly heads to the storeroom to decide if the plant has delivered extra money. He clearly doesn't want his family to find out about his money plant. This is how the plant dangles thousands of dollars. Paul continues to remove cash from the plant, while also keeping it a secret from his own family. One day, Tim, an elderly man, comes knocking on the door, professing to be the closest companion of his departed uncle. He wants a small present for his relationship. Additionally, Paul writes him a $1,000 check while he is in a very upbeat mood. The family is shocked by this. Additionally, as soon as Tim leaves, they confront Paula. Nevertheless, his newly discovered abundance, but instead of telling the truth about everything, he tells another lie, claiming to have recently sold a lot of properties. Over the course of the days, Paul gains wealth. He has now begun dressing in originator garments and has sewed his battered and worn outfit together. Furthermore, he gives his youngsters $200 as pocket cash. Whoa, screw skins. We are able to purchase a quality game at the moment. As a result, the house is abuzz with happiness for the first time in a long time. In the accompanying scene, Paul has totally changed. He no longer frequently considers insignificant sums of money and is always looking for new ways to spend more of it. He purchases in a single occurrence. Despite the fact that his house has very little lawn, a costly lawn mower. Another circumstance. His coworker Jack mocks his previous vehicle. Paul becomes irritated and buys a game's vehicle. However, he makes the error of paying for everything in cash, which makes the car dealer suspicious and promptly informs the police of Paul's involvement in illegal activities. Car dealers are con artists. That is impossible for them. At the point when she comes to an obvious conclusion, analyst mill operator additionally finds that Paul is associated with criminal operations when she shows up at the scene not long after and gathers all of the data she can from the vehicle vendor. Subsequently, she focuses on surprising him. Paul, on the other hand, goes to work and shows Jack his expensive car. Also, you thought I was a little Jack. When the last option asks Paul how he would pay for it, Paul responds that his uncle left him a lot of money as a legacy. He then heads home and surprises his family by giving them the car. Even though the children are thrilled about the new purchase, Grace, his wife, starts to become suspicious. She demands that Paul inform her of the real kind of income. Grace, on the other hand, continues to ask the same question over the next few days, just like he did the first time. Nevertheless, Paul usually figures out how to ignore her. As a result, the couple gets into a few minor arguments. Yet again Tim, an older man, shows up external one morning and requests a gift. Grace, on the other hand, is questioned by Detective Miller when he arrives at the house, and Paul is now in a bad mood because Tim left rudely for the office. She inquires about her husband's occupation. Furthermore, despite the numerous disagreements, Paul actually maintains elegance. Realizing that she will not receive assistance from his family, Detective Miller decides to take matters into her own hands, noting that he is an honest, hardworking real estate agent who has never committed an illegal act. She coordinates. Paul's profile research uncovers that he has not sold a solitary item in the previous month. Because of this, she is even more certain that he is involved in something wrong. Paul's life, then again, starts to twisting crazy because of his significant other's steady pestering. Elegance asks where he typically gets his money. She also slowly but surely begins to question his morality. Things get even worse when the plants stop handing out cash. Paul, assuming that someone has cursed him, gives money to anyone who might think badly of him. In addition, he pays a significant donation to Tim's office during his visit. He simply needs to dispose of the revile so his plant can work once more. However, Tim offers the real estate agent some advice because he is impressed by the agent's attitude. He tells Paul that he will be content and happy if he gives his wealth to those in need. Paul partakes in the idea. Additionally, he begins his departure by placing additional cash on the desk. Sadly, when Detective Miller arrives at the scene a few minutes later, he discovers the significant sum of cash lying on top table. Thus, she presumes that the old man is Paul's partner and that both of them are associated with criminal behavior. That night, Paul, who hasn't slept in a while, goes to the storeroom and tries everything to get the plant to work again. Even peruses the Holy Scriptures at some point, trusting that God will take care of him. Unfortunately, his efforts are in vain. Paul buys a coffee to take with him to a cafe the next morning. He meets a wanderer as we head out and gives him a $100 note to continue his Great Samaritan scheme. He also gives the man his coffee to keep him from becoming dehydrated. Sadly, Detective Miller comes back shortly after the reliefs. She recognizes the wanderer with the money and assumes that he is assisting Paul in the nearby distribution of opiates. In this manner, she gets him without permitting him an amazing chance to talk elsewhere. We found out that Paul was supposed to go to his son's crucial football game, but as is his usual behavior, he left home without telling anyone. His child is incredibly disappointed and furious thus. Grace is currently attempting to contact Paul but only receives a response. When nothing works, she, close by her young lady, Carrie, go to Paul's plant to look for him. In the dim and gloomy setting, there are no indications of employees present. As Carrie enters a room with little light, she accidentally slips and falls through a material-covered opening. It turns out that Paul should have fixed it, but he just covered the hole to save time. His own girl has now been hurt because of his remissness. In the subsequent scene, we are taken to the hospital, where it becomes clear that Carrie has a broken arm. Paul's coworker, Jack, is furious at him for being always careless and late to work. He was about to punch him, but he backs out at the last moment and leaves later. Paul additionally understands his mistake and starts to sob before his significant other until the end of his life. He has taken shortcuts when he should have done things better. Because of this, and because she is such a good wife, his family has never been involved. Effortlessness requests that he begin once again that evening and pardons him for everything. The hospital finally lets go of Carrie. Furthermore, everybody at last moans a murmur of help. Paul also apologizes to his son and promises to always be by his side. Yet again and he has concluded that family is more important than anything else in the world. Paul expresses that from this point forward, he will be a superior individual. Having said that, the very next morning, outside Paul's house, mill operator criminal investigators arrive and capture him. As Paul is taken to prison, he is shocked to see the fugitive from before. Tim is also present, and finally, he talks about the money plant in detail. As a matter of fact, he was the person who originally found it when Paul's uncle was having inconvenience and gave him the cash plant with the expectation that it would help him. Despite this, the exact opposite occurred when there was more money. Paul's uncle began to fall into an even more dangerous depression. But with some help and counseling, he was able to completely change his life. He began distributing all of his wealth to those in need. In addition, this eventually made him happier than when he died. After Tim finishes telling his story, Paul is encouraged to follow in his footsteps. That is to help everyone around him continually. After a while, they are all unexpectedly released from jail. It turns out that Paul and Jack informed the law enforcement agencies that they were extremely prosperous. Jack was the only one who actually handled the transaction after they sold a substantial New York property. He merely lied to the police to save his friend. Because of this, Detective Miller has no more evidence against Paul. As a result, she abruptly ceases examining him. Children, you heard it. If you are caught lying and punished, simply lie again. The following day, Tim's affiliation holds a little capacity, and Paul's entire family is invited. Reveals itself to be a homestay for children who are orphaned and do not have a caregiver. To help the project continue, Tim was asking for donations. Paul gives a moving speech about all of his experiences when he is soon asked to speak on stage. He initially states that he will give the organization all proceeds from the sale of his sports car. He also says that he will always do something to help the kids, which gets him a round of applause from everyone, but especially from the people who are there. Jack and his loved ones are extremely impressed. In the final scene, Paul and his family leave for a vacation. He has less cash now than he did before the money plant existed. He is, nevertheless, content. In addition, that is the only thing that matters. Paul returns Tim in the wake of giving him a handshake. He currently realizes about the cash plant. He then drives off with his family in his car, demonstrating the true worth of life. Turn on notifications. Please subscribe for more videos like this, and like the channel to support it. Thank you very much for watching.